Hello, friend. If you like, you can settle in now, in whatever way feels most comfortable. Let your shoulders sink away from your ears. Unclench your jaw. Rest your hands where they can be still. We'll take 3 easy breaths together. Nothing dramatic, just a gentle rhythm to invite the body to soften. Inhale through the nose, slow and cool. Exhale through the mouth, a soft hush. Again, in and out. Once more, in and out. Good. If your eyes want to close, let them. If they want to hover half open, that's fine too. There is nothing to do, nowhere to be, except here, listening. And in the listening, a story begins, unhurried, like rain finishing its long conversation with the mountains. It had rained all afternoon, a kind and steady rain that did not scold the earth, but patted it in friendly taps. The traveler walked a high path among the pines, where needles gave off a clean, green perfume, and the stones underfoot shone as if they had just been washed. Each breath tasted of cool rock and sap, and a hint of wood smoke carried from some hidden fold of the valley. The world was composed of small sounds. Drip, drip from the mossy eaves of boulders. A soft hush from the stream down the slope. The quiet, stitched rhythm of boots on damp earth. They were not in a hurry. The traveler had long ago traded the clock for the sky, and learned to measure time by how the air felt against the skin. Today, after the rain, the air felt like silk drawn slowly across the face. Mist unrolled from the ravines, thin and pearly, curling against the trunks, threading the branches. The traveler paused beneath a leaning pine and unwrapped a tin cup from a scarf, pouring a little warm tea from a small thermos. The steam rose in a thin ribbon, vanishing into the mist with a soft as if the mountains were tasting it too. When the rain tapered to a sigh, a quiet brightness began. Not the sharp, dazzling stab of sunlight, but a gentle widening of light, as though someone had opened a window in the sky a fraction. The traveler noticed a change on the path ahead, a pale glimmer drawn across the stones, as delicate like a brush of color left behind by the passing rain. Red, then orange, then gold, a faint band, almost not there. They blinked, and the color deepened, soaking into the wet cobbles. Cobbles? The path, which had been dirt and pine duff, seemed to be paving itself stone by stone, with little low hums in the distance, like sleepy bees, Or perhaps like the echo of a bell that had been rung yesterday and was only reaching this spot now. The traveler took another quiet sip and followed the glimmer, curious, but with no weight of urgency, only the lightness that comes after a long rain. The trees thinned. The air, which had been all forest and mist, gathered other scents, fresh bread, warm and yeasty, a hint of citrus, the faint, clean sweetness of laundry drying somewhere, and something like crushed petals, tender and green. The mist parted in a careful, courteous way, and beyond stood a row of houses that had not been there a moment ago. Houses with eaves like the tilt of a friendly hat, roofs that shed beads of water like strings of little pearls, and walls that seemed to breathe color. It was not garish, not loud. The colors were alive but quiet, like the inside of a shell that turns with your hand. Here a mother-of-pearl blush, here a slow river of blue. Each house wore a different band of the rainbow, but not as paint, not as something applied. The colors seemed born from within the material itself, woven into plaster, steeped into wood grain, hiding and reappearing with the angle of light. A doorstep of mossy emerald led to a door that sighed sky blue. A window lintel held a line of soft, laughing yellow. Shingles rose in sleepy violet waves, a lullaby of roof tiles. The traveler stood at the edge of a little green, where a stone marked the crossing of paths. The stone was old. One could tell by the respectful roundness of its corners, and across its face ran shallow carvings of arcs and droplets, as if someone had recorded the memory of rain. And there, at the base, a simple line, "Welcome," written so gently you felt the word before you read it. "Shh," the wind seemed to say, combing through the after-rain hush. Not a warning, an invitation to keep the tone soft, to match the village. The traveler stepped forward. Their boot met the newly dry cobble with a sound like a soft click, and a faint shimmer ran ahead, as if the stone were telling its neighbors, "We have a guest." Along the green, wind bells made from thin glass leaves gave a small, courteous chiming, almost apologizing for having to move at all. A cat lay in a warm patch near a porch, tail wrapped around its nose, breathing with the confidence of one who is very sure of the sun's return. No map the traveler had ever seen marked a place here. Yet the village had the feeling of something that had always been. A presence that appeared only when the world was polished enough by rain to show its hidden layers. The traveler's chest softened with a kind of childlike wonder that was not childish at all, but deeply adult. The private wonder that arrives when you stop to really touch the day. Let your breath follow that feeling, in and out, slow, even. Match the traveler's pace. Notice your senses the way they notice theirs. The damp wood scent, the warm thread of bread, the bright, shy notes of citrus. The sheen of color plays hide and seek along a window frame. Exhale any edges from the body. Let the edges blur. A door opened across the green. Not fast, not as an announcement. It opened like a conversation starting. A figure stood in the threshold, wrapped in a shawl the color of old roses, the threads catching a pale spectrum where the mist still wandered. The figure lifted a hand, not a wave exactly, but a gesture like placing a cup on a table for a friend. The traveler felt that small interior click that says, "You may come closer." But there was no hurry. The village itself seemed to encourage lingering. Even the swallows under the eaves stitched their flight slowly, snip, 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 as though sewing the sky closed after the rain. The traveler took a step, then another, feeling the ground answer back with that soft click, that little reassurance. You are held. A window box of herbs breathed out thyme and mint. A copper kettle on a doorstep gave back the world in a mild, rippled reflection. The traveler's outline, the shawled figure, the curved clouds, a slice of mountain that had put down its load of rain and was resting. Everything had the calm after sound of water. At the center of the green stood a low fountain, a circle of stone with a bowl of rain gathered there, a mirror with a silver skin. The water made a sound like sleep-talking, words that were not words, just comfort. The traveler felt an impulse to set down their pack, and did so, carefully, feeling the shoulders ease. In the quiet, the heart found a slower measure. The mind, so used to pulling ahead, came back to stand with the body, and the two greeted each other with relief, like friends who had been walking at different paces all day. The shawled figure nodded, and the traveler nodded back. Words would come soon enough. For now there was the agreement of quiet company, the language of presence, the village listening to the traveler, and the traveler listening to the village. Somewhere a kettle gave a small polite chuff, as if clearing its throat before singing. Somewhere a door latch clicked, and the soft pad of slippers crossed a floor. The light, growing rounder, stroked the houses until the colors deepened like fruit. Plum into twilight violet, lemon into amber, sky into a blue that tasted faintly of clean linen. The traveler reached out and trailed a finger along a railing where rain had left tiny pearls. The droplets broke with a whisper, each one a small sigh. Shh, hush, welcome. It felt as if the village had unfolded itself from the rainbow that had just lifted and was now settling back into shape, ready to be known. In a moment, the first conversation would begin, and with it the slow braid of meeting and being met. But for now, we rest in this threshold, in the hush after rain, with the colors breathing softly all around, in and out. Let your breath incline toward ease. The path behind is washed. The path ahead is kind. The traveler stands at the center, unafraid. When you're ready, we'll step further in together and meet the inhabitants of the Rainbow Village, each with their quiet craft and their way of brightening the day. There is tea to taste, stories to hear, and gentle work to watch. The sort of work that makes a person drowsy in the sweetest way, soothed by hands that know their tasks. For now, let your shoulders fall another inch. Let your tongue rest in your mouth like a small boat on still water. Hear the fountains sleep-talking. Or perhaps that is only a memory, fading. The traveler smiles, small, true, and waits for the invitation to cross the green. The figure in the rosy shawl stepped from the doorway, and, with a tilt of the head that felt like a welcome letter folded open, beckoned the traveler across the green. No hurry. The cobbles kept their whispering click, click, and a ribbon of warm bread scent grew stronger, as if a golden thread were being pulled gently through the air. "Come," said the figure, voice low and kind as quilted cloth. "You've arrived between the rain and the shine. My name is Mara." She was older in the generous way that mountains are old, soft at the edges, warm at the center. Her shawl, woven in quiet rose and dusk tones, caught a faint spectrum each time she moved, not a shout of color, more a promise. The traveler offered their name in a murmur, and felt it accepted, placed, and lightly patted as one might tuck a flower into a lapel. Mara led them along a lane where each house breathed a different shade. One a patient green like a leaf held against the sun. Another a mild blue with threads of lavender unspooling where the roof met the sky. "We are a village of tenders," Mara said. "We tend small brightnesses. They are like candles that do not burn down. When the world is washed enough to see them, we open our doors." They came first to a low building with a round window like a friendly eye. On the sill lay loaves cooling beneath a gauze of steam. The door was propped open with a smooth, river-worn stone, and from within rolled the quiet rhythms of baking, the hush of dough turning, the soft thump of palms, the crisp whisper of crust shifting as it cooled. "This is Oren," Mara said. Oren, a baker with flour at the seam of his smile, looked up and tipped a wooden peel in greeting. "Weather needed the mountain," he said. "I need the rest." He placed a small round into the traveler's hands, light as a cloud, warm as a pocket. "Rain bread," he explained. "It catches a trace of the sky it rose in." The traveler tore off a piece, steam like a little ghost of comfort, and tasted something simple and perfect. Tang and warmth, a whisper of citrus, a sigh of honey. The crumb was tender, the crust a polite crackle. Mmm. The body understood that food was also reassurance and loosened a notch. "Drink with it," Oren added, pouring tea from a little blue pot that had a hairline fracture held together by a filigree of gold. "We mend what breaks with something brighter." The traveler sipped. Herb and heat, a hint of bergamot, and watched the gold seam glow faintly where light touched it. "Kintsugi," Oren said, as if naming a friend. "The line of breakage becomes the line of beauty." The traveler nodded, inwardly, feeling how certain days left lines that, in time, might gleam. Back on the lane, Mara pointed to gutters that caught light like water. "Ayla lives there," she said. And as if called, Ayla leaned from the workshop window, a strand of hair escaping her braid like a silver thread. She was a glass worker. You could tell by the way the air around her sang a little. Inside, glass rods rested in cups like bouquets, each stem a different hue. Ayla lifted a soft glowing pendant she had just shaped, an oval with a captive rainbow, the colors swirling as slowly as cream stirred into milk. "We don't trap light," she said. "We simply give it a room to rest in." She held the pendant for the traveler to see. As it turned, crimson sighed into orange, orange into gold, gold into green, as though the colors were greeting one another in a circle. The traveler felt their breath unconsciously mirror that roundness. Inhale, exhale. They walked on. A boy, no, a young man, but with the open face of someone who had kept his wonder polished, knelt beside a low bed of herbs. He pinched stems with a tenderness usually reserved for letters from dear friends. "This is June," Mara said. June looked up with soil crescents on his fingertips. "You've caught the village while it's still damp," he smiled. "The colors are plumper now, like fruit after rain." He offered a sprig of mountain mint. The traveler touched it to the tongue and felt coolness roll out along the roof of the mouth, a stream in miniature. The body sighed, the way that does when it recognizes kindness. In a courtyard hung with lines of dyed cloth, a woman drew fabric through a bowl where water curled with soft color. Saffron, then pale tea rose, then a blue that seemed to have learned manners from the sky. "Dye doesn't force," the woman explained, lifting the cloth slowly, letting the water wash off it. "It listens, it takes on the tint that suits its thread." Her name was Sarah. She passed the traveler a length of cloth to feel, light, cool, obedient to the hand. The dyes themselves smelled faintly of berries and rain-touched bark. Sarah smiled. "We call it weathering," she said. "Not as in age, as in becoming weather-wise, knowing how to be with what is." The traveler tucked the phrase inside like a smooth stone. Here and there, small chimes lifted phrases into the air. Tin, bamboo, a sliver of shell. Not music so much as punctuation, the gentlest commas. A cat, perhaps the same cat from the porch, joined the walk with the sober seriousness of a guide. It inspected the traveler's ankles, acceptable, and trotted ahead to the next doorway. They entered a workshop that smelled of cedar shavings and orange oil. The builder within, broad hands, kind eyes, looked up from a chair, whose back curved like a wave, about to break, and then thinking better of it. "Toma," Mara said, "maker of rest." Toma touched the chair as one might greet a living thing, and invited the traveler to sit. The wood held them like a friend who knows the map of your shoulders, the slope of your spine. The body answered at once, rearranging itself into yes, yes, there. The traveler closed their eyes and listened to the soft knit of silence, the cat's tail making a whisk whisk on the floorboards, a rope of breeze slipping through the crack in the door, Toma's plane whispering down a slat of wood. Shh, hush, shh. The sound alone was balm. Toma believes, Mara said, that comfort is a craft. The traveler thought of long days braced against hard chairs, of the difference it made to be met by a surface that expected your shape. We carry so much, Toma murmured, and not all of it is our own. Let the chair carry a little. The traveler let it, for a slow minute that felt like a small lake reflecting clouds. When they rose, the chair kept a memory of their warmth, and the traveler kept a memory of being held. Across the square, a bell lifted a single, careful note. That was the clock here. One note when the light changed its mind. The bell-maker, an elder named Ibn, stood outside the foundry polishing a small bell whose mouth was lined with a thin thread of color. Violet into blue into green, the spectrum so gentle it might have been a dream. He let the bell speak, a low, round tone, like a pebble dropped into a still pool, the ripples slow enough that you could count them with your breathing. In, 1, 2, 3. Out, 1, 2, 3. The sound said nothing urgent. It said only, continue. Here, the traveler noticed, nothing demanded. The village did not reach out to claim. It simply stood, available, like a library of quiet pleasures. People tended their crafts tended the people, and the world inside the village moved on the tide of attention itself. Mara guided the traveler to a small tea garden tucked between two houses, a pocket of green brightened by rain. A low table waited under a woven awning. Teacups, thin and luminous, held the sky like little lakes. When Mara poured, the surface trembled, then stilled, holding a mirror of the traveler's face, softened by steam. "Tell me," Mara said, "what you were carrying up the mountain." The traveler considered. Here, telling did not feel like unloading. It felt like placing stones in a pattern so that the path could be seen again. They spoke of distances, some measured in miles, some in unsent letters. They spoke of the clean ache that comes from trying hard and not yet seeing the fruit. They spoke of the pleasure of rain and the fatigue of days that held too much brightness and not enough shade. As they spoke, the tea cooled to the temperature of understanding. Mara listened with the attention of someone darning a sock, steady, precise, kind. When silence came, it was not empty. It was a soft sleeve drawn over the arm of the moment. She added a thin slice of candied peel to the traveler's saucer, sun held in sugar. "You don't have to make sense of everything," she said. "Some things ripen after you stop checking them. Our village appears when the world is wet enough to show its colors. People, too." Her shawl, catching the tilt of light, shone with a faint band of green. "You've arrived exactly as you are. That's the only ticket we honor." They walked again, slow as reading a good sentence twice. Children, grown children, the sort who carry instruments and loaves and lengths of thread, passed without haste, offering nods and small gifts, a lavender sprig, a warm pebble, a folded scrap with a proverb inked in a hand so tidy it felt like a hug. On a porch, two friends repaired an umbrella, stitching a patch of translucent fabric that bloomed with color when the sun touched it. "We patch what weather opens," one said, not looking up. The other hummed, a tune that knew only 3 notes and was content with them. By the fountain, a woman named Ellen painted small arcs on a wet stone with rainwater, then watched them evaporate into nothing visible, and everything felt. "It's how I practice letting go," she said cheerfully, waving the wet brush like a wand. "The picture exists while it does. Then it exists only inside the one who saw it, which is a fine place to live." The traveler realized that in the time since arriving, the body had grown unguarded. The jaw unlatched, the breath widened. The muscles, those little security guards of the day, had put down their tiny flashlights and were leaning against the walls, chatting softly. A nap yawned somewhere in the future, not yet, but inevitable as evening. The lane was pooled with soft shadow. The rainbow on the houses had softened from singing to humming, still bright, but gentled by the angle of the hour. "Will I find you again?" the traveler asked, and the question carried no panic, only a wish. "You'll find us when the world is polished," Mara said with a smile that felt like being tucked in. "And when you remember to look at edges, the edge of rain, the edge of day, the edge between doing and being. We like edges. They are where colors blend." They ended back at the green, where the first stars thought about showing themselves, and then decided, yes, all right, just a few. The cat curled into a comma near the traveler's pack, punctuating the sentence of the day. The bell gave one more thoughtful note. Eben raised a hand from across the square. Orrin slid another loaf from the oven with a sigh of contentment. Ayla hung a finished glass leaf where it could collect starlight. June brushed the mint with gratitude motions, small and sincere. Toma placed a cushion on the chair, a final kindness. Sarah's dyed cloth whispered secrets to the breeze. Ellen painted one last arc on the wet stone and smiled as it vanished. The traveler's heart, once brisk and focused on distances, now felt like a bowl filled to the brim and then topped with one more spoonful that did not quite spill. The sense of wonder settled in, not as fireworks, but as a steady light, like coals under ash, enough to warm the hands. They sat on the low wall by the fountain, palms open on their knees, and shared the village's way of evening, a soft inventory of small goods. Warm bread, clean tea, firm stone, friendly faces, a sky unwrapping itself stitch by stitch. If you'd like, you can share that inventory now. In your own quiet, name 3 small goods from today. Not grand victories, just the kind that make a person exhale. The feel of a soft shirt, the taste of water, a window opened to cool air. Let your breath move in time, in and out. The traveler looked at Mara, who nodded as if they were confirming a recipe they both knew by heart. "Rest," Mara said. "Then you'll walk on, carrying what you need, leaving what you can." Her shawl shifted. A whisper of color crossed it like a soft smile passing over a face. The village breathed. The traveler breathed with it. Somewhere, night put a foot on the threshold. The first star unpinned itself from the deepening blue. And then another, and another, as if someone were opening a little tin of lights and placing them one by one along the rim of the sky. The rainbow village quieted into its evening voice, a softer version of the same gentle song. Doors were not shut so much as eased into place. Lamps glowed from within, their light drifting across thresholds like warm breaths. The fountain's murmur deepened to a slower syllable, a kind of yes that repeated itself without growing tired. Mara guided the traveler to a low bench near the fountain, where a folded blanket waited, dyed the palest wash of dusk, almost colorless, the kind of cloth that takes on the tint of whatever it touches. For the shoulders, she said, settling it with a motherly neatness. The traveler felt the small homely weight, and with it an invitation to do nothing, to simply be held by evening. "Before you go," Mara added, "we do what we always do. count what the day gave back. She sat beside the traveler, not close enough to crowd, close enough to a companion. 3 bright moments, she suggested, small ones, the kind that hide in pockets. The traveler thought the village seemed with them. The warm heel of Orin's rain bread, the slow, round tone of Iban's bell, the way Toma's chair had known their back as if it had memorized it long ago. The list arranged itself without effort, each memory landing lightly, like leaves finding their place on a quiet path. Mara nodded, as if she could see the list without being told. "There," she said softly, "that's enough." If you're listening here at the far edge of day, you might like to make your own small list. Nothing urgent, just a soft counting on your breath. On the inhale, name a little good. On the exhale, let the body say thank you in its own language. Maybe a loosening in the neck, a deeper settling in the hips, a gentle untying in the hands. In, name. Out, thank you. The bell gave one low, velvety note, the village's way of saying the light had turned. Windows thinned to amber rectangles. The cat circled twice, found a sentence of warmth on the bench, and curled into it a tidy comma. Above the roofs, the rainbow that had lingered all afternoon breathed out the last of its color and folded itself away into the memory of wet wood and fresh air. "It's time," Mara said, and her voice held both farewell and welcome, as if she were seeing the traveler off on a journey into a very safe place. The village will soften back into the hills, but what it placed in you, that stays. It brightens from the inside. The traveler felt it. Not a grip, not a blaze, just a steady ember in the chest, the kind that never asks for more fuel and yet is always warm to the touch. They stood, shouldered their pack, lighter now somehow, and thanked Mara with the kind of gratitude that uses few words. She accepted it with a small bow, and then, like a good caretaker of endings, she led the traveler as far as the edge of the green and no farther. "Walk slowly," she advised, smiling as though at a secret that belonged equally to both of them. "Let your steps be the lids of your eyes, each one a little lower, a little softer." Her shawl gathered the last smear of color, and for a moment, as she turned, it was impossible to tell where cloth ended and evening began. The lane unspooled under the traveler's feet with the same quiet click, click as earlier, but quieter now, as if the stones themselves were winding down. Ayla had left the small leaf of glass at the eave to catch starlight. It held a modest rainbow and then let it go without a fuss. Sarah's cloth swayed on its line, whispering a hush that the breeze carried like a lullaby. Oren, inside, set his dough to rest. There was a softness to the way he moved, as if night had risen to his elbows. John's herbs wore tiny beads of dew beginning to form. The mint breathed coolness into the path like a promise of good dreams. Toma's chair, just visible through the workshop window, seemed to wait patiently for tomorrow's hands. At the stone with the shallow arcs, the one that remembered rain, the traveler paused. The carved word welcome felt faintly warm under the fingertips, as if hands had read it all day, as if the word itself kept its own small hearth. "Thank you," the traveler murmured. The stone, being a stone, did not answer, and yet the air considered the words and laid them gently where they belonged. Beyond the last house, the path returned to earth and pine duff, to the friendly dark shapes of trunks and the soft rise and fall of the ground that had drunk so much rain it was long past thirst. Night here had its own scent, cool, resinous, with a ribbon of damp rock. The traveler did not hurry. Wonder, once settled, does not fear the dark. It makes its own little lantern, one that glows best when you look at the world with soft eyes. If you like, walk with the traveler now. No effort needed, just the imagination's quiet footsteps. Feel the ground under you, steady, supportive. Notice the cool drift of air over the cheeks, the calm weight of your body where it rests. We'll let our breathing match the pace of an amble. In for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Just the smallest pause, as if admiring a star. Out for a count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let the exhale be longer than the inhale. Let it tilt you toward rest like a gentle slope. A thin breeze threaded the pines. Somewhere a small creature went about its careful business, making the rustle that means all is well. The traveler found a place where the trees opened to a sky wide enough to hold the thought of sleep. They set down the pack once more, not from weariness now, but from permission. From the side pocket, they drew the little pendant Isla had let them borrow. the oval that gave light a room to rest in. It held the merest whisper of spectrum, the colors neither bold nor shy, just present. The traveler hung it from a twig where it could sway, slow as a rocking boat. They sat on the ground, back to a friendly boulder that kept the day's warmth like a secret. The blanket from Mara, somehow folded into the pack without fuss, came around the shoulders again. The world shrank to a circle of comfort. The boulder's heat, the blanket's weight, the pendant's gentle sigh of color, the sky's slow blinking, the fountain's murmur far off resolved itself into memory, then into the steady sound of the traveler's own breath. Shh, hush. If you're still awake within this circle, we'll make it smaller and softer yet. Bring attention to the face. Smooth the brow. Let it be wide and quiet like a calm lake. Unfurl the tiny muscles around the eyes. Let them rest as if they've just watched rain, and now prefer the view behind the lids. Unclasp the jaw. Allow the tongue to rest like a small boat against the floor of the mouth. Let the throat feel warm and unbusy. Shoulders sink. Ribs widen just enough to make room for a deeper breath that asks for nothing. The belly rises, falls, hips heavy, thighs like logs by a hearth, sturdy, still, knees, shins, ankles, each one nods yes to gravity. Feet, toes, soft, letting go of the day's map. We'll count down, not from a great height, no need for drama, but from a little hill of 10, stepping lightly to a meadow where sleep is already waiting. With each number, a piece of the day unbuttons and folds itself neatly away. 10. You are sitting with the traveler, quiet and content. 9. The village glows in memory, steady as coals. 8. Your breath flows in an easy river. 7. The chair that knew your back still holds the shape of comfort. 6. Warm bread, a polite crackle of crust. 5. The bell's low ripple, counted without hurry. 4. Mint cools the mouth of the mind. 3. The shawl's soft colors edge meeting edge. 2. The word welcome under warm fingertips. 1. The ground is kind, the sky leans close. 0. And here is the meadow, soft, safe, familiar, in the way that true rest always feels familiar once you find it again. There is a place for your head, as natural as a thought settling. There is a place for your hands, as simple as yes. The air is the right temperature. The sound is the right hush. The pendant's colors sway, slower, slower, and then fade to a pleasant gray behind your eyes. The traveler, who is also a part of you that remembered to come here, lies down. The blanket learns the shape of the moment. The boulder keeps watch, old and kind. Above, a last star finds its place and then stops moving. Inside, the ember of wonder glows, in no hurry to prove itself, content to warm what it touches. It will travel with you quietly, tomorrow and the next day, a pocket-sized village light. There is nothing to do now, nothing to fix. The path will be here in the morning, and the village will return when the world is polished by rain, or by the soft cloth of attention. For tonight you are complete. Your breathing is the whole story. In, out, in, out. The body knows the rest of the words without being told. Sleep comes the way the village came, gently, when all is ready. It steps out from the edge between the rain and the shine, takes your hand without pulling, and leads you across the green of your own quiet mind. Doors open to rooms where rest has been tended all day. A chair that fits, a cup that warms, a light that forgives. Follow if you wish, or simply let sleep do the walking. Hush now. The fountain speaks a last, drowsy syllable far away. The bell will not ring again until morning. The cat is a comma. The sentence ends in peace. Good night. Good night.